Thousands of people are here.
زي حقاوان أفريقاوان سدتنيات عنا ناب إيطاليا كسجر سفتنة جالبا بمتحلة لعلي 300 كاباتهم مويتهم كخانو كم زقولو يقلص علوم.
One of the reasons that many of the people leave is because of the indefinite military service for both men and for women, and for the very harsh conditions and the fact that you can never leave. Why is there this?
This is another lie. Again, another lie. It's compromising your credibility.
These survivors, now recounting their ordeal to family and friends, tell how a burning blanket used to attract help caused panic and led to the vessel turning over.
And
he threw away the blanket, but he threw it towards some people who were just sitting there. They screamed and everyone ran towards the other side of the boat. Because everyone was standing on one side, the boat was unbalanced and then it capsized.
30-year-old Gamani Nagasi tells me he'll never forget what he saw.
For 5 hours we were floating, using the dead bodies of our companions. There is nothing worse than this. There were many children. There was a mother with her 4 children, a mother with an infant, all lost at sea. My mind is scarred and in a terrible condition.
The coffins of the 111 bodies recovered from the sea after Wednesday's shipment.
This morning after a boat carrying migrants from Africa sank in the Mediterranean Sea, and at least 90...
This morning, dozens of people are dead and hundreds more are feared dead.
Now to our top story. Up to 300 migrants feared dead after a boat carrying African migrants caught fire off the coast of Lampedusa.
Many have already perished on their way to Lampedusa, but with scores of bodies now ashore and hundreds more still missing. This is among the worst of
Divers believe many bodies are still inside the boat. They're not looking for any more survivors.
سكيات بزيحو قرستنا وحيو نسلي يسليهم وفي وافطرحو اسقبل أرويت نيرات خيوتو سلامك يا ملاني دقيقة انتو وقبيل خيدونا متى بزوتو حبسك شون ايتمرسن نسوس ايام لسن خمك شون ايتمرسن نسوس ايام لسن
Non posso non ricordare con grande dolore le numerose vittime dell'ennesimo tragico naufragio avvenuto oggi al largo di Lampedusa. Mi viene la parola vergogna. È una vergogna. Preghiamo insieme Dio per chi ha perso la vita, uomini, donne, bambini, per i familiari e per tutti i profughi. Uniamo i nostri sforzi perché non si ripetano simili tragedie. Solo una decisa collaborazione di tutti può aiutare a prevenirle.
This is the first glimpse of the migrants' boat, which lies 150 feet beneath the surface. Divers believe many bodies are still inside. They are not looking for any more survivors. This was the moment yesterday when rescue boats arrived at the site where the boat with the migrants had capsized. At one point, Coast Guard crews were in the water trying to save people. It is feared that up to 300 people lost their lives in the Mediterranean's worst disaster involving migrants. During the rescue, one man warned of the large numbers still at risk.
And how many people say in the boat?
On about 480 or 500.
We met today one of the survivors, Cafe Gebra Medim, from Eritrea.
We got out swimming. Our motor didn't work anymore. We turned on a fire. The fire got out of control, and everyone jumped into the water.
Throughout the day, ships and helicopters have been scouring the waters. There are still 200 people unaccounted for. The survivors say they were so close to land they could see the lights. Some of the early rescuers have been describing the moment they arrived at the scene. Domenico is a fisherman who told us many of those he saved were covered in kerosene.
When I stopped the boat, you could only see the heads with the arms in the air, and they were screaming. There were so many people in the sea. We only managed to save 20 of them. 2 have now died, 2 women.
7 countries today take almost all the refugees in Europe. But we are setting in place a common European policy with common standards so that in a year or so all countries, all 28, would be ready capacity-wise to receive refugees.
Tonight in Lampedusa there was a silent procession, a small island in mourning. They know there are no easy solutions to a crisis that drives tens of thousands to their shores.
European Commission President José Manuel Barroso's trip to the Italian island of Lampedusa began with boos and shouts of shame and murderers from some of the residents. Barroso and Italian Prime Minister Enrico Letta made a short stop at the refugee centre before being shown a hangar with the bodies of some of the more than 270 people killed in last week's tragedy.
That image of hundreds of coffins will never get out of my mind. Coffins of babies, coffins with a mother and a child that was born just at that moment.
Immigration and asylum will be on the agenda at the next EU Council at the end of the month, and Letta is calling on all EU member states to find a solution. Italy will do everything it can, but it's a European tragedy which the EU needs to take on and tackle.
Però non infangate le persone che hanno collaborato a salvare queste vite umane. E la mia rabbia è solo questa, che adesso loro sono i bravi, sono quelli che hanno risolto il mondo, hanno salvato le vite. E noi siamo i coglioni che abbiamo messo a bordo 47 persone, che volevamo continuare a prendere queste persone e si sono rifiutati di trasbordare su una barca di una certa importanza. Io ero a filo d'acqua con la mia barca. Eravamo in 55 sulla mia barca, ne eravamo 2 persone. Si sono rifiutati perché il protocollo non lo permette. A un certo punto ho detto io vado in porto, no, lei di qua non si deve muovere, dobbiamo dargli noi l'autorizzazione ad andare in porto. Ho detto guardi che lei non ha capito niente, io vado in porto, faccio quello che vuole. Sono partito e sono venuto in porto a scaricare queste persone. Non so se vi rendete conto, vedere il mare che bolliva di persone umane, di gente che chiedeva aiuto, ma poi alla fine ci siamo accorti che ormai le persone ne mancavano poche a essere salvate. Se andavamo fuori non ci sarebbe stato più nessuno, li avevano tutti presi. Basta, questo è quanto.
Working through the night, rescue workers and divers find more bodies. The wreck of the migrant vessel lies on the seabed less than a kilometre from the shores of Lampedusa. Around 500 African asylum seekers were on board. As many as 300 could be dead.
We went underwater 3 times and we recovered 18 bodies, of which 10 were outside the ship at the bottom of the sea, and 8 were recovered tonight from inside the ship.
We were the first to save anyone. We were near the port, spending the night on our boat. We heard screams and we rushed to see what was going on. Actually, they were more like whispered cries, not screams.
Loads of them were crying. 200 people in the water is an unbelievable sight. Many helped pull others from the water, those who couldn't climb aboard by themselves because they had no strength left. Many were naked to give themselves the best chance of staying afloat.
These people, many of them are likely to have been fleeing war, fleeing persecution, fleeing human rights abuses in their own countries. So this is a tremendous tragedy of multiple layers.
The Italian government are calling on the EU border control agency Frontex for help. They want a marine patrol in place, saying it's the border of Europe, therefore Europe's coast.
We feel abandoned by Europe. We feel abandoned like no other day today. I don't know how many more people need to die at sea before something gets done. And we will make sure that our voice is heard during the next European Council, both ourselves and the Italians, to say that rules need to change. Whether they are tighter or looser, it doesn't really make, it's not the issue. The fact is that as things stand, we're just building a cemetery within our Mediterranean Sea. We have solutions, we have proposed solutions. First of all, changing the rules that govern all this sector, namely the Dublin II regulation, increasing international development aid, increasing the patrols in order to rescue people at sea, and definitely roping in countries such as Libya as active partners within all these operations. Until now, we have encountered statements, words, but little more than that.
حبسكشون አይተመልሰን ንሱስ አየምልሰን ካመገሻን አይተመልሰን ንሱስ አየምልሰን አይተበዕጆኒ ደይ በዓሪ ጊዜን ይሐስቡ ጊዜን ይሽተይ عدب عدين زامت لليتي يوتي حتيتا نايمانا سيي نزل عركي حواي محسيي مسيس عميي نبصور عبايي نبصور عبايي لو مخزكرو زي مسحني مازال عركي حوي محسني سايز عبايي بصور عبايي جخوم ولدنا لبنا يوم شدناتنا أنت يمو قبر قزي خيرو تعزيرو
The national service became absolutely without limit. All males between the age of 18 and 50, and all females between the ages of 18 and 40 became subject to a new form of national service, which became a kind of open-ended form of slave labor. You could be 3, 4, 5 years. Some people who are still in it today have been in it since 2000, for the past 10 years. People work without pay. And they work without pay for the state. Now, people who try to escape have to think twice. Because not only do they run the risk of being arrested, but also if they are caught on the border, they're shot. The border guards just shoot anybody on sight. But then if the person manages to flee anyway, that person will see that the family will be pursued.
The human rights situation in Eritrea is a matter of deep concern. Credible sources indicate that violations of human rights include arbitrary detention, torture, summary executions, forced labor, forced conscriptions, and restrictions to freedoms of movement, expression, assembly, and religion. There are an estimated 5,000 to 10,000 political prisoners.
Human Rights Watch says you are turning this country into a giant prison and creating a human rights crisis.
You can walk around and see for yourself if that is true. Again, it's a lie.
Who do you consider your friends?
Where do you mean?
In the world?
The whole world. The whole world.
Excellencies, based on my findings, I'm extremely concerned about the human rights situation in Eritrea. The prevailing situation in the country is characterized by extrajudicial killings, enforced disappearance and incommunicado detention, arbitrary arrest and detention, torture, and inhumane prison conditions.
The human rights situation in Eritrea continues to pose serious concern. We deplore the lack of meaningful cooperation extended by the government of Eritrea to the rapporteur. Let me assure the rapporteur about Slovakia's full support to the mandate. We see a strong need for its further extension. Thus, we are encouraged by the renewed initiative pursued by the African group. Slovakia concurs with the special rapporteur that in Eritrea a real change would require a fundamental reform process, transforming the current culture of rights denial into one anchored in the rule of law and in respect for and the realization of all human rights and human dignity.
We regret, however, to hear that the government of Eritrea has not collaborated with your mandate. Ms. Ketaruth, you reported a number of alarming human rights violations in Eritrea. We are very concerned about arbitrary arrests, the lack of fair trial, and the dismal prison conditions in the country. We're also very worried about the lack of freedom of expression in Eritrea and the reported arbitrary arrest and incommunicado detention of journalists.
According to the reported information, basic tenets of the rule of law and fundamental freedoms are not respected in Eritrea. The series of arrests following the event of 21 January of this year also constitutes a matter of concern. We urge Eritrean authorities to respect international human rights law and implement Eritrea's international obligations, as well as the Eritrean constitution and its provisions.
The Czech Republic wishes to thank you for your first report that sheds light on brazen disrespect for human rights and human dignity in Eritrea, accompanied by a culture of impunity. Despite the fact that Eritrea is a party to a number of core international human rights instruments, it systematically violates most of the rights enshrined in them. This appalling human rights situation, in which the very right to life and personal integrity is violated, pushes many Eritreans to leave their homes for an uncertain future abroad. Many of them are dying on the journey as a result of the shoot-to-kill border policy of the government. Public discourse, including on human rights issues, is non-existent, as all civil liberties are under severe restrictions and state control. There are no independent press or media. Formation of political parties or private associations is not allowed. No civil organizations or non-governmental organizations are permitted, and there is currently no single international NGO operating in Eritrea.
Injustices are intolerable. No human being, no community, no nation will bow to injustices. They may be intimidated for some time, they may be manipulated for one reason or another, but ultimately it doesn't work. These are explosions, these are uprisings we see happening. These situations have been accumulating for so long, and finally it explodes. People in the streets come out, and people are revolting everywhere. It's not in the Arab world, it's not in Africa, it's not in Europe, it's everywhere.
أحيت بلي تسفخ يا تقرأ يوم كل حلف يا بلي أجوخي فتار له سماي بزي عندي أبلع لي زسفرو سلمي توينبرنا خايك وقحيو أحيت بلي أجوخي فتار له كندي حسوم مقرت زي وحدو كندي شقر كذا زي لوطو تفتوى بابا أخاي شق لو أحيت بلي أجوخي فتار له عقلخي تسببي امنت كتريريا جزيان تنوحي رحوة متايو عقلخي تزببي امنت كتريريا جزيان تنوحي رحوة متعيو كله حلفيو هو حلفايو هي كله حلفايو قوبو أبلع لقوبو سهرة مدري بلا سب زي ركبو أوي خردائي يا خاي زي بلو حيت بلي أجوخي فتار اللو رمانيت ببحري كسدد تقدلي قالي أساقيرو قالي ترفي قالي أضحيلو قالي به وتقبري حيث بلي عجوخي فتار اللو عقلخي تسببي امنت كتريريا جزيان تنوحي رحوة متعيو